Hey class, in this video I'm going to talk about the schedule for the rest of the semester and the final project. And we'll go over submitting the creative brief for the final project at the end of the video. And that's the only thing that you're going to have to kind of submit for next week. Next week I'll talk about submitting the final project. So today I'm just going to sort of show you guys how to get started. And next week we'll look at how to actually submit it. And then it's going to be due on the 21st. So the first thing to actually go over is the schedule for the rest of the semester. I actually changed the due date for the final project. So if we, let's go into student view on Blackboard. And so if we go into assignments, you're going to see that we have our final project is the last assignment. The programming assignment is due today. So just a reminder for that. Let me know if you guys have any questions before you submit that. For our final project, that's going to be due on the 21st. Actually does it show the, let's see if it shows the due date. Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I had to change that because normally I've been doing stuff on Mondays, but on the 20th I'm going to be traveling. I'm not going to be probably available over email for most of the day. So just in case there's any last minute issues with submitting the assignment, I wanted to make sure that I was going to be available to answer those questions. So the 21st is going to be the due date for the final project and also the last day to submit any of your work. So after the 21st, that's it. You can't resubmit, you can't change your projects or do any new submissions or anything like that. So if you do want to get some feedback on your final project before you submit, you can do that. You can submit it early or you can just send it to me and I will take a look and let you know if you have everything that you need. But after the 21st, there's not going to be any revisions or chance to turn anything in. So that's basically the schedule. We really have just a little over 2 weeks left. We have this week to start on the final project. Next week we're going to wrap up the final project, and then on the 21st that'll be the end of the semester for this class. So let me know if you have any questions about the schedule, but hopefully that should be good for everyone. So while we're here, let's actually, since we're going to be talking about the final project, this is also where you can view the rubric for the final project. So make sure to take a look at that and make sure that you have everything before you submit. So there's a few different components here, and we're going to talk about these. So I'm not going to go over them in detail right now, but just make sure that you take a look at that rubric before you submit the project. Okay. So let's go over to our OpenLab page and look at the final project description. So here is the final project. You can find this if you're on OpenLab, go to topics and go to final project down here. And our final project is open-ended. It's a chance for you guys to do something creative and choose one of the topics that you found the most interesting in the class this semester and try creating something new. And I want to really emphasize that you have to make a new piece of media. You cannot just reuse your self-portrait or your audio portrait or your animation. You have to choose one of those types of media, but then make something new. And you are going to have to submit. So another thing that I want to emphasize is that you have to submit the edit files. So depending on what media you choose, that's going to be either the Adobe Photoshop or Illustrator files. That could be the Audacity AUP3 file, or it could be the After Effects AE file. Again, if you're not sure what I mean when I'm talking about that, we've been discussing it throughout the semester, but if you're not sure exactly what I mean, let me know. We can go over it. We can email or we can meet on Zoom and make sure that you have those files. If you do not submit those files, you are not going to get credit for them. So if you submit your final project and you don't have those files, then you're not going to get credit for that component of the assignment. So you really want to make sure that you have those files and that they're submitted correctly. I'll go over that again next week, but just want to make sure we know that. So for the content, you can decide, you can choose whatever it is you want to talk about. Pick any topic that you're interested in, any medium that you're interested in. we want to think about it kind of as a story in general. We're telling a story through media. It doesn't have to be, a super long story, but it just has to have some sort of premise and then some sort of beginning and end. So there's lots of ways that you can think about that. I'm going to show a few examples of some cool projects from last semester to give a sense of what that might look like. For the format, we're going to use a website like we've been creating for the past few weeks on Code Sandbox. And in this case, we're going to use the website sort of as a container for the project, and then it's going to host the media, whether that's an image, audio, or a video or animation. And I have a few templates that we're going to look at in a second that you guys can use as a starting point for those. So it's going to have all of the same stuff as our previous websites. It'll have HTML pages, CSS pages, and media. And I'm going to quickly go over what those templates look like and then how to upload and embed the media on the page in just a moment. So some different types of projects that you might be interested in doing. And I'll show a few examples from last semester. A lot of students did comic book projects, so I'll show what those look like. So a comic book is a good one. You can make some illustrations or photo collages in Photoshop or Illustrator, and then use those as panels in the comic book, and then you could put them on a page or separate them across different pages. You could create a new animation in After Effects and embed that on your website. Or you could do a series of interviews with audio and embed those on the website. These are just a few examples. If you can think of other things that would be really interesting, feel free to really go wild and explore anything that you're interested in. The last thing that we're going to do in the video today is create a creative brief. And so that's a chance for you to kind of pitch your idea. And then I'll take a look at the ideas and I'll give you guys feedback before the final project is due. So there's a few deliverables. And we're going to submit these all on Blackboard at the end of the semester, but some of these things we'll do this week. So starting with the creative brief, you're going to create an Open Lab post based on the template. And so here's the template. Basically, we used to print these out. If we had an in-person class, we'd print them out and just fill them out in class. But since we're online, we'll do this as an Open Lab post. So you're just going to fill in your first and last name, the title of the project, and then a few components of the project. So what the story is about, what media you're going to use, and then the general style or emotion that you're going for, and then the software that you're going to use to create the media. So I'll go over that at the end. When you submit the project, as I mentioned, you're going to submit all of the master files or edit files for the media that you created. And then you're going to create an Open Lab post with a link to your project on Code Sandbox, a link to the code on Code Sandbox, a description as we've been doing for all of our projects. And there's a template here where you can see that description. I'll go over this in more detail next week. And then any attribution. So if you use any Creative Commons or public domain media in your project, then you can use the attributions for those. So that's everything that is going to go into the project. So let's look at a few examples from last semester of projects that students worked on. So I'm just going to pull a few of these down. We used a slightly different template and code editor last semester. So it may look a little bit different, but you should see that they're using similar technology to what we're using. So I'm going to drag this down here. So a lot of students last semester did comics. So there was a lot of students who were interested in illustration and wanted to make comics for their final project. So here's an example of one of those comics. It's just embedded on a page. It's very simple. There's a starting page. Just a second. Okay, here's the second page. You can see why we're not using this editor anymore. For some reason, these web editors are really quite buggy, so we may have to come up with a better system for this. But anyway, here's the second page of the comic, and then here we go again. And there's the third page. Okay. So, it's just a 3-page website with different comic book pages embedded on each page. So that was one project that I liked a lot from last semester. Let's take a look at a couple more student projects from last semester. Hopefully these will be running. Okay, so here's another final project. So this student did a second version of his Choose Your Own Adventure story, but this time he added illustrations. So he created another Choose Your Own Adventure story. It has a lot more content, and then he created illustrations to go along with it. So we'll look through a few of these. I'm not going to read everything on here, but you can see some cool illustrations that he created and his story. And there's a whole lot of pages. You can kind of make this as complex or varied as you want to. But that was a fun project with some really nice illustrations. Here's another comic book project that had some nice animated illustrations and a cool sort of like navigation system. That was another example from last semester that I thought was really nice. And here's another comic example from last semester. This one is actually just one page, so you don't have to have multiple pages, but you can see they did 5 different panels for the comic, and some of them have these animated GIF illustrations. So that's a little bit different than what we covered with our animation section, but if you're interested in doing something like that, we could go over how to do it. But another cool comic project from last semester. And so in the last example, this student made sort of a visual novel. And so this was using a lot of the technology that we went over in the semester, but kind of adding a lot to it to create this interactive experience. And so this has audio, it has images, and it also has a Choose Your Own Adventure story. So I'm not sure if the audio is going to come through, but you'll still see there's some background music playing and some sound effects. Oh, I don't have my headphones on. Maybe that's why. Okay, there. So you should hear the audio. This is a longer piece, so we'll just look at a couple pages from this. And so each sort of panel has like different text, and then the user kind of clicks through, and then there's different points where you have choices. So this was a really nice piece. It involved a lot of work. Obviously, there's audio and illustration, and a fair amount of programming as well to get all the text in here. So that keeps going. It's quite a long piece, so I won't go through the whole thing, but that's another example of the type of project that you could make. Okay, so now let's take a look at the templates that you can use. So I created a few different templates for different types of projects, and I'm just going to go over how to actually add the media. So that'll be important for you guys to get started. So I'm going to go to my Code Sandbox dashboard, and we'll start with the image template. So if you're making an interactive comic like the ones that we saw, this could be useful for you. I'll include links to all of these in the video description and the Blackboard post as well. But so here's the template for a project with an image. And I added a link to a second page. You don't have to have a second page in here, or you can have more than 2 pages. You can really go with whatever you want. But really, it's just a pretty basic website. You'll notice that it has all the stuff that we've covered so far. It has a title. It has a little header. There's some really basic styles. You can change these styles to kind of match what you want to do with your project. But they're pretty straightforward. You should be able to kind of add to this and make changes where you want. There is one example of where to put an image, and I put it inside a class so you can style the image if you want. That was something that will be useful if you are creating an interactive comic and you want to add like a frame around it or do different CSS things. So let's just quickly go over if you were going to upload an image. So with this template, first of all, you would fork the project. So when you open the link to the template with your own Code Sandbox open, you can just start editing and it'll create a fork for you, or you can click fork and create your project that way. So that's the first step, is to create a project, create a fork of the template that matches what you want to use. And you can also use a mix of images and video and audio as well if you want to, so you could look at all of the templates. But let's go over just uploading some media. So in this example, I'm going to use the self-portrait image that I created, but keep in mind that you have to create a new piece of media. You are not going to use your self-portrait. You're not going to use something that you created in a previous project for this class. So just keep that in mind. So even though in the example I'm using my self-portrait, that's not what you're going to do. Okay, so I'm going to create a new folder and call this images. And then inside the images folder, I'm just going to drag an image. So I'm going to go over to my Finder and open this up, and I'll go to my self-portrait. Again, I'm just using this as an example. So if I wanted to use my self-portrait, I would just drag this image in here. And then I just have to put that image path into the image source file. So I'm going to go to image source here. I'm going to put first the images folder that I created, and then slash to indicate that it's a folder. And then Code Sandbox is suggesting to me to use self-portrait.png. That's the right suggestion. So I'm going to hit enter and accept that suggestion. And now you can see when I reload the page, you can see the image is embedded on the page. And so you can add more images if you want to. And I mentioned I created this class image container. So if you want to style, you can go to style.css. After, really it doesn't matter where you put it, but if you do .image container for a class, and let's say we want to make a border 1 pixel solid, let's make it blue. Now you can see I have a border on the image, so you can style the image like you would in a comic book if you want to. Again, that's not necessary, but that's just an example of the type of styling that you could add if you want to. And let's actually make this match my H1 border color, so it'll look a little more. Got the hashtag, so it'll look more like it matches. Okay, there we go. Okay, so that's the image template. If you want to work with images, that is the template that you will want to use. Again, I'll include links to all of these templates in the YouTube description and in my post on Blackboard. Okay, so let's move on to our audio template. I'm going to go to my dashboard, and I'm going to go to the audio template. So again, you would start by forking this project. You can see I have a couple embedded audio examples. The interview is just a suggestion. You could do other types of audio. If you make music, you could add some tracks of music. If you do other audio projects, you could do that. So embedding audio is a little bit different. You can see I have the audio tag here. And basically, instead of img for image, you have audio, and then you have the source, but there's one extra part, which is this controls part. And I'll show you why we need that. If I take this out, then you're going to see that the first audio doesn't have that UI where you can actually hit the play button and do other stuff. So you could play the audio using code, but we want to leave those controls in there so that the user can play the audio. So that's why we have that controls attribute in there. So everything else, is going to act the same way as our image, basically. So let's do an example of adding some audio. I'm going to add a folder and just call this audio. And then we're going to upload some audio. So I'm going to go back to my Finder and go to my audio portrait. And I'm going to find the final edit, which I assume is this final right here. And I'm just going to drag this here. And I'll just do an example of the first one. I put 2 in there just, to show that you can add more than one, but you don't need to, or I'm not going to do that here. So again, for the source, I just go to my audio tag here. And just like I did with the image, I added an audio container class here if you want to style the section with the audio. So for the source, I put in audio. And Code Sandbox is suggesting I use audio /, which is the folder, so that's right. And then I have audio final.mp3. So now when I save that, when I reload the page, let's put on the headphones. When I reload the page, you can see that this first one has a little bit of a loading sign here, and it has the play button is now enabled versus the bottom one here is not enabled. So this one has no source. And if I hit play here, it should play the audio. And I can change the volume. And then there's also a menu here if I want to download or change the playback speed. So if you are interested in working with audio, you could do a series of songs, you could do a series of recordings of yourself or your friends, or you could interview people. Anything that uses audio, would be good for this project. Okay, so that's our audio template. Whoops. So let's look at our last template, which is our video template. This is similar, but a little bit different. So if I go back to my dashboard, I'm going to go to the video template. And so this looks very similar to the audio template, but notice that there's an extra element here. So we have video. We have the same thing where we have controls. So we need to have the user interface for the user to control the video. But then we have a separate source tag here. And the reason we have that is because different browsers have support for different video formats. And so we're just going to use MP4 because that's what we've used before, and that'll work for most browsers. But for a lot of projects, you might have backup videos. So you might have different file types. But all we really need to do is fill in our source here. So again, we'll just go through the same process. I'm just going to add a folder. I'm going to call this video. You can call this whatever you want. If you want to call it animation, that's fine. And then I'm going to go to my animation and I'm going to find my MP4 file. For this one, you do want an MP4 file. It's not going to work if you have like an MOV file or something like that. So let's upload this to our video folder. And it's not going to load. I don't know why it tries to load it as a file. So now let's add our source. So the source is video/main.mp4. And now you'll see when we refresh the page, you're going to see the video is embedded here. And we may want to add some CSS. So let's play this and see that that works. There's the animation, but it's taking up a lot of space. So let's add some CSS and then we'll have this template working. So I'm going to go to my CSS and I'm going to add .video container here. I'm going to say max width is 100%. I'm going to do the same thing with the video tag. I think this should fix the sizing. Let's see, there we go. So now our video is going to match our container. So that looks much better. We have the controls so the user can play the animation. And then of course, with all of these templates, you can change, put the title for your final project here, add any text or descriptions that you want, and play with the styles, make it match make the design match the idea for your project. Okay, so those are our templates. If you have questions about any of those, let me know. They can be adjusted for projects that use different types of media. Of course, we could go over how to do that. Oh, I forgot to change the title here. This should just be my final project. I thought I did that. Let's double check. Maybe I only did it on the image one. Yeah. So you can see I forked my Choose Your Own Adventure project to create the basis for this. Okay. So those are our templates. So last thing that we're going to talk about in this video is our creative brief. So besides getting started with the project this week, you are going to want to submit the creative brief on OpenLab. And I'll review those and I'll give you feedback about this seems like a good project, or maybe you could think about making some adjustments. So I'll do that in my review video next week before the final projects are due. So let's just take a look at our brief and we'll make a post on the OpenLab. So I'm gonna make a new post. I'm gonna call this, I hit the edit button, not the new post button. Whoops. Let's hit the new post button. Okay, so let's collapse this here. It's telling us to add a category, so let's go to our categories, and we don't actually have a creative brief. Oh, this is a weekly blog post though. Let's call this a weekly blog post. This is our weekly update, but this is really our creative brief. So why don't we add a new category? Let's get rid of my head for a second. Let's add a new category, creative brief, and click add new category. That's really more accurate category for this. Okay, so let's go here and say creative brief. And so now we're just gonna go through and fill out our creative brief. So start with your first name and last name, and then the project title. So for me, I'm just gonna say my final project. This is just a placeholder. You should come up with a title that goes along with the theme of your final project. And so when you're working in the industry, people don't just like start working on stuff. Usually you have a team or you have a boss that you have to pitch stuff to. And that usually is going to look something like this. This is a simplified version of this where you're going to say what type of media I'm going to use, what the basic idea is, and how I'm going to tell the story of this project. And then that gives a chance for some review, so that you can make some adjustments before you actually go in and put the work of creating the project. So we're going to start with summarizing the story. So we're going to say summarize your story. And so here is where you can sort of come up with an idea. You can really, do whatever you're interested in, something that you're passionate about, whatever kind of like creative idea that you've been wanting to do, is a chance to do it here. But for the story summary, we just want a basic premise and, all of the sort of parts of the story, what goes into it. So I'm just going to do a quick example. So I'm going to say my story is about let's make a story about a frog that can dance. So that might be your premise, and then go from there. What happens to the frog? Why can they dance? Whatever you want to put in here. Use this time to kind of be creative and come up with an interesting idea. So there should be more than that. We want to have a beginning, middle, and end. So I'll just put a reminder here, beginning, middle, and end of our story. Whatever that might look like. It can be very simple. It can be more complex, as we saw in some of our examples. Next, we're going to talk about the media that we're going to use. So put media. And then here's where you can talk about what media you're going to use and why. So for my frog, I might be making an interactive comic, like some of the examples we saw. So I could say I'm going to use 5 illustrations of the frog character to create an interactive comic. Or, if you were doing an interview, just as an example, you could say, I'm going to record 3 interviews with people describing their interactions with the frog character. Again, these are just examples. Just think about what the media is and how it relates to your story. Okay, so then the general style or emotion that you want to convey. Okay, so general style / emotion. So for this one, I want to, it's about a frog dancing, so it's sort of silly and happy and, whatever, maybe bright colors, lots of green, whatever it is that's going to help make it clear what your story is going to look like and what the media is going to look like is what you want to put here. So the general style and emotion is very silly, happy, and colorful. And then what software? We'll just put software here. So for our software, if we're doing illustrations, I would say do Adobe Illustrator. If you were doing audio, I would say Audacity. Just put the programs here that you're going to be using. If you have any images that you want to include here, feel free to do that, but this is pretty much what you need to do. Obviously, this is just an example. Yours should have, a bit more of a filled out concept. So once you're done with the creative brief, you're just going to publish that. And that's all you have to do for this week, but you should, get started with the final project so you can fork one of the templates and get started adding your media. And so I'll review these creative briefs next week and give some comments, and then go from there. So I think that's it for this week. Let me know if you guys have any questions. I'll link to all those templates so you can get started with those. And if you need help getting any of those running or working on the forks or whatever, just let me know. And I'm happy to meet in office hours, this week or whenever, to go over stuff. Okay, that's it for today. I'll see you guys in the next video.